Welcome, guys. Today we're going to be continuing with our theme of solving quadratic equations. We're just going to be learning a different way to do this. This is called completing the square. Actually, completing the square is kind of fun once you get the hang of it. It has the same process every time, so it works really nicely. And I think a lot of you most of you will enjoy completing the square. This is just one way that you can solve quadratic equations, and generally they're in a specific form when we solve it this way. Just like when we were solving using radicals, they look like this. Let me get my pen here. ax squared plus c equals 0. We were able to solve using radicals. So this time around, we're going to be looking at something that looks more like ax squared plus bx equals 0. And we need the c to be able to what we call complete the square. So we're going to look at how exactly we do that, and we're just going to complete some squares that are just, they are not equations yet. They're just expressions. And then we will move that into equations. There won't be a ton of completing the square problems on your quiz. There may be one or two, but it's still good to know how to do it. You will look at it more in Algebra 2. So here are the steps. Okay, so to complete the square for an expression in the form x squared plus bx, okay, notice actually we have no a out in front, okay? We need that coefficient to be 1 to be able to complete the square. So it says step 1, find 1/2 of b, which is the coefficient of x. Okay, so half of b, essentially like this. And then square that result. Okay, so square it. And then add the result from step 2 to x squared plus b. So essentially we're taking this and adding it onto the end of here and making it c, essentially. Okay, so it shows you down here, x squared plus bx is going to be plus b over 2 squared, and that's going to equal, okay, what we want it to. We're going to, like I said, we're going to do it with expressions, and then we'll look at it how it works to help us solve quadratic equations. So here we go. Let's try a couple of these with these steps. If you want to pause this to write anything down, that might be good. Okay, so here we go. We have our x squared plus 6x. Notice this is 1 out in front. Our coefficient is 1. That needs to be true. Okay, and then it tells us afterwards to factor the trinomial. So this is just an expression. We're going to take b and divide it by 2 and then square that. Oops, not cube it, square it. Okay, so 6 divided by 2 is 3. We're going to square that, which gives us 9. So essentially we have x squared plus 6x plus 9. And then we're going to factor that. This is going to be plus plus, so we have plus plus here. And factor of 9, that gives us 6, is 3 and 3. There we go. As you can see, completing the square involved taking b, dividing it by 2, and then squaring that. So here we go, another example. We'll complete the square here. Okay, so -9, and then we're going to square that. So now, obviously, this is not even, so that makes things a little bit more interesting. So 9 divided by 2 is 4.5, so we have -4.5 squared. So 4.5 times 4.5 gives us 20.25. Okay, and that would be positive because negative times negative is positive. So then we have x squared minus 9x plus 20.25. Another way we could write that as a fraction instead of changing the fraction, okay, to a decimal, it's going to make your life easier when it comes to factoring this. I should have just left it. Then we would have 81 over 4 is our squared term. Okay, so then this is going to be easier to factor. So we have the same sign, minus, minus. And what we're looking for is, you know what, we're not even going to factor this. Just forget that. We've completed the square, either this or this, and we're good. If it does ask you to factor something like that, it probably won't, just a FYI. But like these, this is not that hard to factor. Sorry about that. Okay, moving on. Some more examples here. Okay, so we have x squared plus 10x. So we want to find that c. So we're going to take b, divide it by 2, and square it. So 5 squared, so we have 25. So this should be easy to factor. And we get 5 and 5, plus and plus. Here we go. Okay, and we got x squared minus 4x. So we got negative 4 divided by 2 squared. Negative 2 squared would give you 4, so plus 4. And you would factor, and we get minus minus 2 and 2. So 7 divided by 2 squared, we're going to get a fraction here. So we're actually going to get 49 over 4. So I actually can help you factor this one. I know I said we wouldn't, but think about this, okay? We have some squared terms here, and we have plus plus, so we're going to be the same. So essentially, all it is x plus 7 over 2 times x plus 7 over 2. Okay, hopefully you kind of picked that up. So now we're going to start taking that same idea and using it to solve equations. Okay, so now we have an equation. What we want to do is complete the square. If you notice here, okay, what we have is x squared plus bx or minus bx, same thing, okay, and then it equals something. We're going to leave that alone. We don't want to get it all to one side, so we're just going to leave that alone for a second, but we are going to complete the square here. So I'm going to take negative 16 divided by 2 and then square that, okay? So I get negative 8 squared, which would give me 64. So what I'm going to do here is add 64 here. If I do something to one side of the equation, what do I have to do to the other? I need to add 64 over here as well, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. So now what we want to do, okay, is factor this, and these factors should be really easy. If you notice the pattern over here, every single time, okay, we got whatever my completing the square was squared. So you can still factor, you'll get to the same point, but essentially what we'll get is x minus, okay, so a factor of 64 that would add up to 16. That would be 8. And then we'd add these, so we get 49. So we have x minus 8 squared equals 49. Okay, so now we can use what we've already learned, use radicals to help us figure this out. I'm going to square root both sides, so I have x minus 8 equals plus or minus 7, remember that, okay? So now I'm going to add 8 to both sides, and I realize this is kind of a lot, but if you get the same idea, so we have 8 plus 7 is one answer, and 8 minus 7 is one answer. So x is going to equal 15, and x is going to equal 1. And you can plug those in and check if that's true. Okay, 1's going to be the easiest one to check. 1 squared minus 16 equals negative 15. Well, that is true. Okay, you can check it with 15 as well. But as you can see, what we did here, we completed the square, and then we added whatever that was to both sides, factored, used the radicals, and solved. So there's a lot of steps, but it works the same exact way every time. So let's try some more examples. All right, so now it's already, okay, there's a C over here. So we don't want that. We want to get it set up so that there's no C there. So I'm going to add 8 to both sides. So then I end up with 2x squared plus 20x equals 8. Okay, this one involves a lot here as well because I don't want this 2 out in front. I need to get rid of that 2. So what I'm going to do is divide each side by 2. So I'd have x squared, okay, and 20 divided by 2 is 10, equals 4. So I had a lot of setting up to do there. So if you have ax squared plus bx plus c, you need to get the c over, and you need to get x squared with a coefficient of 1. Now I can complete the square. So I forgot my x here. 10 divided by 2 squared. So that would be 5 squared, which is going to be 25. So essentially what I'm going to do is add 25 to both sides. Okay, so if I factor this, that's plus 5x minus 5, which is x plus 5 squared, equals 29. Okay, so now square root that. So I have x plus 5 equals plus or minus the square root of 29. We don't know that. That's not a perfect square, so we just leave it as a 29 in there. And then subtract 5 from both sides. So x is going to equal negative 5 plus the square root of 29. And x is going to equal negative 5 minus the square root of 29. And that's your answer. Okay, I'm going to do one more example and leave up a couple for you to try as well. We're not going to round at all. You're just going to leave the answer in a square root form. So I'm going to do one more example. If you want to try some of these, I can check them. I can check your answer if you come up and talk to me. Okay, so this one I already have. I have a coefficient of 1. I have x squared minus bx, so I'm good. I just need to complete the square. So negative 2 divided by 2 squared, which is going to give me negative 1 squared, or 1. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides. And I'm going to square root that. Sorry, I'm going to factor that. And that's going to give me minus 1, or x minus 1 squared equals 4. Square root that so I can get x alone. So I'm going to have plus or minus 2, and then I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So x equals 1 plus 2, and x equals 1 minus 2. So that's going to be 3 and negative 1. All right, so I've given you a few examples. Again, I want you can try these, okay? So 6, make sure that you get 27 over here, and then you divide both sides by 3 to get g squared without a coefficient, okay, or a coefficient of 1. And then you factor and you continue to complete the square and those types of things. If you have questions, please ask. Otherwise, I think I have your homework. I would like you to try those too and show me before you start on your homework, so make sure you do that. But your homework will be on page 294, numbers 1 through 15 in your journal. Awesome. Have a great day.